of owning a cafe and other heroic deeds by Beware the Tristero, Chapter 32. Helping. With the adoption fees paid, criminally low in his opinion, however, the elderly manager, the same person who'd booked them in for their successful visit, had told him that the older cats were virtually free of charge. He was just delighted that they were finally being rehomed. Inko and Koji-san wrangled the kids back into the minibus. Denki's father, the kindly man he was, a joker, besides, you could clearly see where his son got his enthusiasm from, had offered to take them all for a quick jaunt around one of the better parks since it had become overcast and the heat less oppressive. He'd similarly stated that everyone would be getting an ice cream. Needless to say, that had gone down well. Okay, Aizawa-san! I'll drive the cats to your premises next Sunday after 1100, okay? Smiling and bowing at Tomoko, he presented his business card.
I hope you'll not find this too intrusive of me to say,
he began, their eyes locking.
But after listening to you talking to the kids earlier, I was wondering if you'd be interested in a position at my cafe.
Watching as she blinked, those large expressive eyes widening further, Shouta continued.
I can pay you the going rate, 5 days a week, and we can discuss shift patterns that'll work around your hours of study.
He told her with a mild shrug.
Also, although it'd be great to have some help with the general side of the cafe in terms of customer orders and cleaning, I'd prefer to have you overseeing the cat enclosure and the people who pay to access it.
He stated,
my number is there, and I...
Feeling the wind chaff out of his lungs, the other 21-year-old hesitantly patted the back of the woman, clutching him, his brows reaching for his hairline. Dobby wasn't wrong about those energy levels, was he? Oh, you mean it, really? She asked as she pulled away, her makeup smudged and probably plastered all over his t-shirt. Wonderful. And features literally sparkling.
I'm not in the habit of saying things I don't mean,
he told her, his usual deadpan a touch softer in the face of such innocent hope.
Why don't you go by for a visit on Monday, have a look around, and if you're happy, we can arrange an informal interview,
he offered.
That way we can discuss a start date and get an employment contracts.
Oof! So personal space really wasn't in her vocabulary, was it? However, oh, thank you! He supposed that he could get used to such emotional things, couldn't he? Returning to the cafe, a small crowd of MU students eagerly awaiting their return as they lounged under the parasols and the candy-striped awning he'd pulled out that morning. Their happy voices called out as they welcomed them back at the greeting, pleasant but unexpected. Shouta shared a grin with Inko after they waved the minibus off. As nice as their trip and jaunt around the park had been, he couldn't deny it was good to be home. Wow, Aizawa-san, we were hoping that you'd have brought some fluffy cuties back with you. One of the students grinned whilst he, his ward, the teens, and Midoriya's welcomed them all inside. Koji-san had been more than happy to drop the rest of the tots off back at their respective homes, so that was one less thing to worry about. He'd have to pick up a batch of chocolate brownies to say a proper thank you to the man, since he'd refused to take any yen, wouldn't he? Brownies and ice cream made for a good combination, didn't they? He'd have to add that to the menu, wouldn't he? Yes, that would definitely be a crowd pleaser, and something that was quick to make, quick to bake, and easy enough to add fruit to for a healthy spin, wouldn't it? But these were things to think about later, because in the first instance, he'd had some feline fans to see to, didn't he?
Unfortunately, the main work on their enclosure won't begin until tomorrow,
he told her, his smile fond.
However, my manager and his assistants are going to produce some information posters, so you'll get to see them on Monday,
he furthered pleasantly. Yay! The group gushed. Ooh, I'd like to adopt too! A young man with elfin ears and warm caramel skin called. We could never have cats at home because of Ma's allergies, and well, we can't have them in a dorm either, he sighed a little dejectedly. And me! The blue-skinned sidekick gushed excitedly. It's only fair that we help you to look after them, right? She mused, her hands clasping together. It's going to be so nice to play with them after sitting all of the mind-breaking exams we've got coming up. She sighed, the 7 people behind her nodding in solidarity. Offering a bow of thanks, he began to take their orders, whilst Dabi and Tomura headed through the kitchen and up the stairs to check on Ranaka-san. Izuku, Hitoshi, and Inko, however, were making their way down to the study area to create some more drawings to please Kimiko with when they got to visit her in 3 weeks' time. Then, just like that, Saturday rolled on by with lashings of lemonade, servings of takoyaki, classic sandwiches, and bowlfuls of ice cream with fruit compote and syrup. Sure, life couldn't be sweet all of the time, and there were still the odd bouts of misfortune to deal with, however. In moments like these, the cafe abuzz with laughter, his patrons well-fed and relaxed, well, he'd be sure to enjoy every minute of them. At 1700, before some of the salary workers who worked Saturdays arrived, Shouta left the service bar to Dabi and headed upstairs with a platter of food for Uraraka-san. Tomura had settled down to play a video game with the tats, whilst Inko, clearly wanting to help, was diligently browsing discount websites and sales for cat products on her smartphone with a glass of iced tea. "Ah! Aizawa!" the sandy airman greeted through the fantastic wide archway he'd created to join the two living spaces together. "My, you shouldn't keep spoiling me, you know." He chuckled whilst eagerly taking the tray of onigiri, pickled vegetables, and takoyaki, his nose breathing in the scents with a pleased sigh.
"Providing you with food when you're working so hard is only fair,"
he mused, his hands running down the dried plaster, the breeze running through the now conjoined chamber thanks to all of the windows being open, a blessing. He didn't want his boys to sleep in a room filled with fumes after all.
"This is incredible," he praised. "If I hadn't known that a wall had been here previously, I wouldn't have believed it."
He furthered,
"The fresh coat of paint has really brightened up the place. Thank you for stripping all of that interesting wallpaper off."
He grinned. Are you kidding?" The older man chuckled, another glass of lemonade poured on the coffee table he sat next to on the dust sheet-covered floor. "It feels like an age since I got to get my hands dirty." He smiled, his features ecstatic. "It sure as hell beats standing behind a checkout register and restocking shelves," he breathed wistfully. "But little guys like me and my pals, well, when bigger construction companies can offer people with quirks, they get the job done twice as fast. We kinda became surplus to requirements, you know." He sighed. "Yeah, skill sets seem to be something that most folks just don't value these days, you know." Nodding softly, his own form moving to sit across from him, Shouta gestured at the ground.
"Everyone I approached about opening my cafe here told me I was insane,"
he offered mildly.
"Some even offered me work elsewhere,"
he admitted when the other balked at him.
"I knew what I wanted to do, and regardless of their logical observations, I couldn't just walk away,"
he related, their eyes meeting.
"However, at that time I didn't have children to support, and you have such a wonderful family that you're clearly putting first,"
he reasoned.
"But what would you say to me putting your details and those of the friends who are coming to assist you tomorrow on my connections and contacts board?"
he asked.
"I can't make any promises, but there've got to be people out there who want a true professional of your trade, right? And I'd be more than happy to supply myself as a reference,"
he said thoughtfully, his hands gesturing at the clean, expert work he observed. Blinking, his cheeks pinking a little, Rio chuckled sheepishly and rubbed the back of his neck. "You're a very good man, Aizawa," he returned. "Hell, if I'd had even half your efficiency at your age, then I'd probably be running the country by now," he chuckled. "I'd be thrilled, honestly, if you did that for us," he said earnestly. "For even just the chance to get back on my feet, make good money at the labor I love, and support my two best girls, hell, even the thought of it is enough for me." He grinned, his glass raised in a toast. Returning the gesture with his favorite pushing coffee mug he'd brought upstairs with him, the cafe owner allowed the others' plans for the downstairs remodel to wash over him as the older man's words played on his mind. Having skills to pass on to the next generation was a viable and well-paying thing to do, wasn't it? Perhaps All Might wouldn't mind asking Nezu-san if he knew of any schools or colleges that'd be interested in employing Ranaka-san and his friend to teach such things. When nighttime came, Inko walked her son and Hitoshi to her apartment, and the MU students returned for a nightcap. The boys had asked for a sleepover since an All Might special was playing on the TV. When the pair had gushed over it, Shouta could barely hold back his snicker at the bewildered, nonplussed looks worn by the teenagers he's officially taken in. With so many exams, essays, and assignments due before the end of the month, going out for nights on the town or partaking in the multi-sensory arcades, cinemas, and theaters was a luxury that had have to wait until the summer holidays rolled around in July. He remembered his own late-night cramming sessions in his sparse, quiet dorm room. He was incredibly pleased that he could make this inviting space for them as the sound system gently hummed out soft, crooning jazz. His beloved Italian machine scented the air with freshly ground beans, whilst the last batch of cookies he was baking were nearly done. And soon this space would be all the more inviting, wouldn't it? For Uraraka-san had left at 1900 his K-truck loaded with old wallpaper, bricks, his tools, and 3 slices of devil's food cake for his wife and child to enjoy. But he'd be back at 800 the next morning with his old friend, and he, in preparation, had stored up plenty of water for himself and his found family to use. You couldn't rip up toilets, sinks, or radiators and add new plumbing with it on, of course. Perhaps it'd be worth them all going out for a day out somewhere whilst the work was being done. Jotting the idea down to ask the boys later, Shouta then looked around the eatery, his keen gaze checking that mugs and glasses were full, empty plates had been cleared, and that the MU students were as content as they could be, whilst they, and some of their middle school Koheis, continued to swap ideas, read, and craft revision notes. Such good kids. And speaking of good kids, Dabi and Toma were cutely sharing a beanbag in the gaming area, the decay quirk user's personal tablet held between them as they continued to make information posters for their soon-to-be furry housemates. Watching them quietly talking, lightly bickering, and finally compromising on which photos to use, the fonts, styles, colors, and the like was irrationally adorable. Ding, ding. Looking to the door, Shouta felt his eyebrows raise a fraction, a smile tugging his lips as Shiretoko Tomoko slipped inside with a little wave, a satchel clutched to her chest, and her smile a little wobbly as she marveled at the framed cat photos, his very light outline contacts board, the herbs in his unused service hatch, and all of the students working.
Welcome to the Noriko Cafe,
he greeted with his usual tone.
What can I get you?
Virtually skipping over to him, her pretty unpainted face alight with glee, the woman who he'd received several text messages from since they'd left the shelter that afternoon, bounced on the spot. He knew that she meant well. He could see that those huge smiles, enthusiasm, and hyperactivity could very well be a front for how marginalized and lonely she felt. "This looks is amazing," she stage whispered. "Please, I want to work here anyway as anything right now, if you'd like," she gushed, holding his hands up as around her, his smile spreading despite himself. Shouta shook his head.
"As much as I appreciate the offer," he told her, "and as much as I did invite you over tonight, I had ulterior motives."
He relayed before picking up the business card Loud Cloud had passed him and sliding it over to her on the service bar. She breathed, her delicately varnished nails reaching for it. The woman, whose long hair was tied up in a bun, similar to his own, blinked owlishly. Pro Hero Agency? She remembered.
"Again, I hope you won't find it too forward of me, but considering how proud you were of your license, I thought it'd be a shame if you couldn't get to use it."
He mused, the amber of her irises being rapidly eaten up by glistening pupils.
"They're currently a team of 3, and well, after texting them earlier, they're very excited to meet you,"
he stated, his right hand rubbing the back of his neck a little sheepishly.
"And by excited, I mean the level of energy you gave us when we met you at the shelter earlier."
He upped. Aizawa! The other managed, her hand clutching the bag even harder against her chest. You did all of that for me? She gasped. You don't even know me, That's what he does. Dobby yelled from the gaming area, a handful of her fellow university students conversing the same. "Just say thank you and let him turn your world upside down," he added before his head looking up from the tablet with his partner. "So, welcome to the family or something, I guess?" By 2100, Tomoko had calmed down a touch, eaten more than her fair share of cookies, and gotten her paw print-covered laptop out to power through a set of data sheets she needed to do for Monday, her pink tongue curling up her top lip in a show of concentration. Then, like clockwork, in the Bro Heroes came, their smiles wide as they greeted him, waving at Kaoku Awata, who winked at them, her blue cheeks puffing cutely as she shoved the last chocolate chip confection from her plate and into her mouth before President Mike's wriggling, pilfering fingers could snatch it. "So, where's the lovely lady you told us all about, Loud Cloud asked as he leaned suggestively onto the service bar before he thwacked him away.
Don't dirty up my freshly cleaned work surface, you fluffy air menace.
His brows waggling despite the shove he receives. I'm sure she's not as lovely as you, Shouta. Snorting, his eyes rolling, Shouta inclined his head at the starstruck emerald-haired woman who had quickly shut her laptop down, shoved it into her satchel, and wandered closer to stand in the space between the herb-peppered hatch and the table she'd been set at. Walking to the opposite side of a service bar and looking over the area where bamboo chopsticks, sugar, creme, and similarly eco-friendly spoons and cutlery were housed, the cafe owner watched as the three pros followed, their eyes alighting upon the person he hoped that they'd pick to look after and support.
Ragdoll,
He introduced.
this is Midnight, Present Mike, and Loud Cloud.
He said whilst gesturing to each in turn.
Don't let their terrible costume choices, unruly hair, and unprofessional manner fool you.
He advised, the three of them gawping at him and sputtering indignantly.
They're the real deal, and some of the best people I know.
He finished with a shrug, his words then causing the three to actually tear up with cries of, "Why, Shouta! We knew you liked us!" Such an illogical display. Everything he'd said was true enough, wasn't it? Hey! Tomoko grins. I don't know my outfit with me, but, are you guys on a patrol, like a real patrol, right? Like now? She squealed delightedly, snapping their attention back to her, Shouta watched with the same horrified fascination of someone viewing a train wreck as the completely expected events unfolded. Heck yeah, we are!
We're all about patrolling!
Would you like to come with us, kitty kitty? Oh, really? Wow, he was surprised that his lights didn't flicker in the power surge that was surely being generated by all of that frenetic energy. Then what are we waiting for? The Jedi blonde veritably chirped. Let's go! Oh yeah! Closing up the cafe, a yawn stretching his lips. He checked in with Inko, locked the door, set the alarm, and made his way to the kitchen. She sent him a photo of the boys slumped into each other on her couch in their matching Oh My Jammies, the #1 pros TV special ending as they slept with open mouths, their head propped up together. You are on the door of my beloved thought, that get to the police! Moving on reflex, his quirk flashing bloody red, Shouta had snagged a knife from his wooden butcher's block and was stood defensively in front of the door, which led to his home stairs whilst the little grin stretching his lips. Mr. Compress stood where he'd just walked through, his gloveless hands raised in surrender. Only, no, this wasn't the theatrical dickhead whose arm he should have snapped. No, this was the quiet brunette with, obviously fake, blue eyes and a nose bandage who came by from time to time to drink coffee or tea with a slice of cake and a good book. He'd been in the cafe for an hour or so at 1500, hadn't he? You should have known.
I'm sure that the authorities would be more than pleased to see you if you wanted to head over there and ask for them.
He offered, his eyes narrowed.
There's the door.
He gestured with the business end of his lethally sharp sentoku blade. Aizawa-san, I come in peace, the slightly taller man stated, his lips pouting. I thought that we didn't have the most fortuitous of starts. He edged, a sweat drop swelling at his temple. Since you're such a pillar of the community and so good at helping people, I was hoping that maybe you could, work your magic on me, eh?
Is that a sexual euphemism?
He deadpanned, his crimson glare reignited. The other tried his tone nervous. As delightful as a romantic evening would be with you, without the silverware. He grinned, his shoulders sagging a little. I am unfortunately quite serious. He sighed. I fear that the lavish life I've been trying to carve out for myself with my misdeeds has left me feeling a little vacuous. He furthered with a shrug. I have lots of expensive things, shiny trinkets and the like, but, well, I'm mostly unfulfilled and unhappy. He huffed. In fact, the happiest I've been for a while is when I'm sat on that back booth with something delicious to eat and the sounds of life going on all about me. He added, his tone a bit sheepish. I was there before, once, he mused, and I had such thoughts, Not letting his guard down, the prick was more than likely lying. Shouta regarded him carefully.
What kind of crimes have you committed?
He asked, his tone blunt but inquiring. Well, I'm a transport specialist, he tried after a nervous cough. I've stolen things that I like, but I'm not exactly built for fighting, and outside of your case, anyone who I've ever transported has lived to see another day. If you know more than a little. Hospitalized. He furthered before with a wail he fell to his knees. Bulking, his knife slashing down just to be safe. To remain at a defensive angle, the cafe owner kept his gaze on the other's hands, even as the man bowed his head. Oh, I'm a terrible, horrible person, aren't I? I'm sorry, for all of it. He ground out dramatically. What are you doing? Blinking, his head snapping up to look at him, the younger man shook his head dispassionately.
Come on, get up,
he told him, his tone exasperated.
Look, you want to change your ways and atone for what you've done, right?
He pushed, the other sniffling, nodding, and pulling to a stand.
Okay, I believe I have a contact who could help you, but it won't be easy.
He huffed, his blade still trained on the other. Really? You mean it? Sighing. Because honestly, what had his life become?
Shouta nodded. From what little I know of you, Mr. Compress.
Oh, Tango Atsuhiro, please, Aizawa-san.
Sako-san.
He continued with a strained incline of his head.
Based on what you've said and the kind of attention you're after, why not become a pro hero and then a teacher?
Watching as the man blinked at him owlishly, the slightly shorter man continued on.
Sir Night-Eye happens to be a customer of mine,
he told him.
He and his agency do a great deal of work with the justice system, and one of his most famous projects is the Villain Rehabilitation Initiative. You've heard of that, right?
Humming, his head tilting comically to the side, the brunette continued to blink. A teacher.
You're clearly a well-educated man, if your vernacular is anything to do by,
he reasoned.
So fast-tracking you for that kind of training should be relatively doable. Then, with a quirk like yours and that flamboyance you have,
he continued, his left hand slipping into his back pocket to grasp his phone and activate its AI.
I believe that'd be a good match for you. I can call Sir Night-Eye for you, of course,
he furthered.
A captive audience of young minds must be appealing to you, surely.
I've never really thought about that, the other said slowly, a hand rubbing thoughtfully at his chin. Teenagers are such a fun crowd to work with, he admitted, his head now nodding. Do you really think it's possible?
I don't see why not, he answered, but I'm by no means an expert and haven't looked into the work that he and his agency does in an official capacity.
He told him.
He's an incredibly officious man, though, and for the opportunity to change someone who has the capacity to do so, well, I don't need to tell you how impressive your quirk is.
He shrugged.
Teaching children when you have the power to protect them and effectively get them out of harm's way during training, or whatever it is that the hero courses do, must be a bonus, wouldn't you say?
Yes, you're right, Atsuhiro breathed. That's a great idea, Aizawa-san! He gasped before with a blink. Their heads snapped back towards the cafe as bang, bang, bang! The taller man sighed, his smile dimming. My right, I take it.
Don't do anything foolish,
Shouta breathed, his red gaze narrowing.
Walk out calmly and quietly, and I'll vouch for you, all right?
What? The former performer balked. Your man, what you said?
I'm not in the habit of saying things I don't mean.
He huffed, his head inclining to the fire door behind his bewildered intruder.
Now, come on, get a move on before whoever responded to the call bursts my door down.
He shoved.
I'll bill you for it if they do.